I would not be the person I am today if I had not gone through that entire experience. I mean, the whole thing. And I was supposed to get out after 4 years. I ended up extending. I've talked about this before. And I think if I told you the story now, it would probably be very different than the story that I told when I very first started Your Story Doesn't End Here, because I just see things differently now and more from a healed or healing, I should say, space than before when I was just very angry and outraged with the system that's broken. I think the system's still broken, but I'm seeing more solutions now, and I'm approaching life from more of a solution focus than I did back then. And so I can find a lot of gratitude in the negative or the bad or whatever word you want to use for it, that life experience, and really look at it from more of a high level and say, wow, that molded me, that literally created me.
Welcome to Your Story Doesn't End Here, the mental health podcast of military and veterans who refuse to be silenced. I'm your host, Rachel, and my mission with this podcast is to be a voice for those who don't have a voice, bring awareness to mental health issues, provide value and solutions, and to change the culture when it comes to mental health within the DoD organizations.
Hey everyone, it is Rachel. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode of Your Story Doesn't End Here. I want to talk about two different things today that have really been on my heart. And the first one is grieving an experience that you thought you were going to have, which I may have talked about before. I can't honestly remember, but it's been on my heart. And then also processing experiences that may not have gone as planned and just some takeaways from those. So I actually was supposed to do a podcast recording with someone else, but because they didn't show, which happens often in the world of podcasting, I figured I would just record a solo episode today and just chat about some things that I've been thinking about. And so the reason that this really came up in the first place was I was really reflecting on some experiences from when I served in the military. And this came up because my old squadron, the one that I really feel like molded me and where I grew the most as a person, is sundowning. And it's a bit of a bittersweet thing for me because I felt like I truly grew into my own person when I was at BQ1. It was probably the most traumatic place for me. It was the place where I was the most excited about life at one point. I really just went through the entire array of emotions there. And it has really made just the biggest impact on my life. And so I got to thinking about how the military usually sets you up for, like, changing who you are at boot camp, right? Most people think that you go through this very linear process of, okay, you join the military, you go to boot camp, it molds you into this new person. Then all of a sudden, you are now dubbed soldier, sailor, airman, marine. And I don't feel like my journey was like that at all. And maybe if you are a veteran or active duty, maybe you can relate to this too. But Navy boot camp did not fully transform the person that I was. And I don't know, maybe it did in some ways. I just didn't recognize it because I think that at some point in every step of the journey, I obviously changed and blossomed into a new person of some sort. Obviously, there is some sort of mind molding that happens at boot camp, but it's not what I expected. I expected like what you see on TV, where it's the hardest experience of your life. You want to quit, give up every day. This sucks. Like, I just didn't get that satisfaction when I graduated Navy boot camp because I felt like there was a lot of hand holding. I felt like there was just too much leniency for what I expected. Didn't meet my expectations. And I've talked about this before on this platform and on other platforms. It just wasn't that. And maybe I didn't join the right service for that. Maybe if that's the challenge I was really seeking, I should have joined like the Marine Corps or the Army. I don't know. I always say I joined the Navy because I didn't want to run 2 or 3 miles, and the Navy had the lowest distance of running. And I'm not a runner still to this day. I would love to be, but not right now. And so, I just really felt like my expectations weren't met. And when I look back on my experience, which I think for a lot of people, it's not something that comes to you right away. This is a very reflective process that can sometimes take years. For me, it's been 3 years since I've separated from the military, and thinking about how, man, I joined the squadron VQ1 in 2017. No, I didn't join in 2007. Did I? Yes, I did. 2017 is when I joined that squadron VQ1. And I can remember being so excited for something different because I started shore duty and everyone else in my A school class did not start shore duty. I think maybe one other person did, but everyone else went sea duty right away and they went to a boat or something. I think mostly Virginia. I think a few people went to Lemoore, California. I was the only person that went to Whidbey Island. And I remember my A school instructor being like, "Oh, you're so lucky. Whidbey Island's gorgeous, outdoorsy." I mean, anyone that's been to Whidbey has probably heard the same spiel. Like, if you're outdoorsy, you're going to love it. Mount Baker's amazing, all these things, right? Which is all true. I don't know that I would still consider myself outdoorsy till this day, but if I do get out and hike or, get off island or explore things on the island, it is truly a gorgeous place. But it was kind of like everything, I guess, looking back, was set up for me in a specific way that my life was intended to go that I just didn't see at that time. And so, I enter my squadron VQ1 already having been in the Navy for 2 years. And I was an E3. I think I picked up E4 right around the time that I got there, actually, either right before or right after. I think maybe right before. And I was excited. I mean, I started at this really, really high note where I was like, I'm going to get in, I'm going to do all these amazing things and I'm going to be incredible at this. And there in the beginning, I really felt validated in that because everyone around me was like, "Oh, this girl's working hard. She's going to, shoot her way to the top and this is going to be great." And somewhere along the way, I had lost that personal validation and I felt like people were really trying to knock me down and I felt less supported and my mental health took this nosedive and I continued to almost seek out the negative in everything and the negative just perpetuated. And I'm not saying this in a way of, you know, well, we're just going to reflect on the negative experiences because I'm in a different place mentally now than I was when I was in, or even right after I got out. I'm super grateful for every experience that I went through because when I say that those few years, I think I was there 3 years, that I was at VQ1 were life-changing for me. I mean, I can distinctly look back at that experience and say, yes, this is the pivot point in my life where things really changed for me. Versus boot camp, I was not really. And I think it's because physically, to have a physical challenge is one thing, right? But it's the mental challenges that really shift us and change our perspective and change who we are as a person. And it was when I was at VQ1 that I hit the lowest of my low, the point where I almost took my own life, the point where I felt like I was trapped and I didn't have a way out. And I was around people who were also miserable. And, I also at the same point had an incredible support system of people who were there for me. And I felt like would, drop what they were doing to make sure I was okay. And it's such a hard thing to explain. And I hope that those of you who are listening, maybe some of you can relate or you're at least tracking what I'm saying. But it's those experiences where we are emotionally ingrained in something so deep that it is creating this wave or this roller coaster that is taking us through this journey. Those are the things that change us. And it was that spearheaded my mental health efforts and this movement that I've been on since 2019. It was that spearheaded me into my personal development journey. It was the detachments where I found myself doing things that were unhealthy for my body in order to lose weight or make weight or, try to feel better about myself. Those were the things that spearheaded me into different, God, what's the word? Different areas of my life, different journeys. I don't even know what word to use. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it. But anyway, it's just crazy to think back on how many different things really created me today. And I'm healing still from a few of those things. I would say from a physical standpoint, I'm still healing from just figuring out what works best for my body. when I was in, I learned that I had IBS, which in some areas they say is related to stress. Sometimes it's related to PTSD. I really don't know what it's related to. I say all the time that it's probably related to the 800 milligram ibuprofen that they gave me at boot camp because they straight up asked me, "Do you get period cramps?" When I joined. I said yes. And they said, "Oh, cool. Here's the highest dosage of ibuprofen that you can get. Take this if you have cramps." And that is when I started having stomach issues. So that's what I blame it on. I don't know. But, all these different times when I was able to, even on detachments, spend time with myself and learn to be okay with being alone and learn to be okay with finding other ways to entertain myself when I was in a state of boredom. I can't tell you how many times I was on a detachment and I just didn't want to spend time with other people. And so I found myself either working out or doing something meditative. I listened to a lot of meditations. I also got in the whole of playing games on my phone for one point, but figuring out that, okay, at some point, scrolling on your phone and playing games, it gets really boring and it gets old really fast. And so, what other things can I do to occupy my time that are going to build me up as a person and help me be better? And I always felt like, as much as I struggled with mental health and depression and anxiety when I was on my detachments, I always felt like that time alone in a way and by myself, it was good for me because I needed it. And if there was one thing that I would say that I actually miss about the military, it was those times where I just got that solitude for 3, 4 months at a time. And it wasn't always pure solitude. I mean, obviously we were working and, we had weird schedules and I'm napping in the middle of the day and up at 3 a.m. to go work on a plane. But there is something about getting away from the norm and the mundane day to day at home base, which was Whidbey Island for me, and getting away to something different that is just so life changing and healing in kind of a weird way. And yeah, I would not be the person I am today if I had not gone through that entire experience. I mean, the whole thing. And I was supposed to get out after 4 years. I ended up extending. I've talked about this before. If you haven't heard my story, I want to say 3 parts to my story. And they're pretty early on in the podcast. I think my very first episode was part 1 of my mental health journey. And I think if I told you the story now, it would probably be very different than the story that I told when I very first started Your Story Doesn't End Here, because I just see things differently now and more from a healed or healing, I should say, space than before when I was just very angry and outraged with the system that's broken. I think the system's still broken, but I'm seeing more solutions now, and I'm approaching life from more of a solution focus than I did back then. And so I can find a lot of gratitude in the negative or the bad or whatever word you want to use for it, that life experience, and really look at it from more of a high level and say, wow, that molded me, that literally created me. Everything I do and I have today was because of what I went through when I was there. But no one's really talking about that. No one's saying, "Yeah, it's not boot camp that's gonna shape you. It's your 2nd or 3rd command that you go to. That's what's gonna shape who you are." Oh, and it's not gonna be a strategic mind fuck of boot camp or people yelling at you. It's gonna be you hitting the lowest of your low, and it's gonna be you hitting the high points and feeling really good. It's gonna be you going overseas and experiencing life in a different country that you never would have imagined you're even gonna go to. I mean, I didn't even know Bahrain existed until I joined the military. It's gonna be experiencing tragedy with people that you grew really close to and growing close to people who move away and maybe you don't talk to them for a really long time. There's all these little things throughout our military experience, whether you do 1 year, 2 years, or 20, 30, 40 years. You're going to go through these experiences with people and it's going to change your life and probably in a way that you did not expect it to. And so, if you are active duty or you're a veteran, I'm really curious if you've also gone through this reflective process and if you feel like your biggest transformation took place in boot camp or after boot camp. And so the other side to this episode that I really want to dive into is grieving the experiences that we thought we were going to have. And I kind of touched on this a little earlier with boot camp, thinking that boot camp was going to be the toughest thing for me. Same with when I went to VQ1 and in showing up there and having this vision and thinking, wow, I'm really going to excel here. And I'm really going to climb my way to the top and be this incredible person and be the number one, whatever. I don't know. And not getting that and feeling like it was everyone else's fault. If I had the opportunity to go back and do it over again, I wouldn't let other people drag me down. And if I get to, I guess, right now where I'm at, thinking of the root cause of why I acted the way I did and why I reacted emotionally the way I did, I think it's because when I was growing up, I was so used to the praises and the accolades for random shit. I was a swimmer and I got really good at swimming through hard work and practice. But when I hit that point that I saw as my peak, and I let that place me in a position of stagnation, and I crashed really fast, and I had no idea why. And I was doing the same thing. I was repeating that same pattern in the military. I didn't study for any of the advancement exams. I was out there gun decking a lot of my quals. I honestly don't think, looking back, that I was working that hard. I was just doing busy work. And there is a huge difference between busy work and making it look like you're getting stuff done versus actually taking the time to learn and study and excel at something in a way that maybe doesn't look like busy work, but you're gaining the knowledge. And I wasn't doing that. And so for me to have the audacity to be upset for not climbing the ladder as fast as I thought I was going to. I mean, I look back now and it's like almost laughable, as crazy as it is to say, because it's like, well, Rachel, you didn't actually go and study and learn. You just tried to learn enough to get the check mark. And I think a lot of that was learned through the military too, because that's just what everyone else was doing. The people that were hitting these wickets and these checkpoints, they were literally just doing the bare minimum. And then if someone would try to go do more, they're like, hold on, what are you doing? No, you don't need to do all that. You just need to do this, and this doesn't matter. And we're just going to check this off for you. And so it is a little bit of a culture thing, but at the same time, it's the people that are doing something different that stand out. And it's the people that actually take the time to learn and grow. I mean, the Navy is still test based, I think, last I knew, for ranking up. And to just take the time to study to advance, that would have made a world of a difference in my life, but I didn't do that. And so taking responsibility back then and saying, hey, this is all my fault. I just need to do better if I truly want to excel at my job. Absolutely not. I was not going to admit to that. A lot of me in my head and my gripes and complaints were, well, this is what I thought was going to happen. I figured that I was just going to hit, E3, and then a few months later, take my advancement exam, hit E4, first time up, cool. E5, first time up, cool. E6, first time up. And it didn't happen that way. I hit E3 and I took my first exam. What's crazy is I was off just by the tiniest bit every single time, but it always took me 3 times to rank up. And I was an E5 when I separated from the military. But instead of saying, how can I do better and how can I be better? It was always, well, I guess I'm just going to be here forever. I guess I'm just stuck here forever. And then continuing to not study and continuing to not make myself better. And I can't say that people did not tell me to study, because the resources were there. People were giving me what I needed. And I would just kind of glance at stuff and this is boring. This isn't interesting to me. And I just wouldn't do it. And so I think there is a level of responsibility there, personal responsibility, where, yeah, I had this expectation. And yes, it's okay for me to grieve the life that I thought was going to happen that did not happen. But at the same point, there was a level of control that I was not personally implementing myself. And so there's a little bit of this fine line here where, yeah, we can set a goal and we can set a vision and we can start walking towards it, right? But if we're not taking any action or we're just taking very, very minimal action, the expectation of the result is that we're either not going to hit the result or it's going to take us a lot longer to get there. And so for me, it's not that I wasn't taking any action, I was just taking the bare minimum action. So naturally, it's going to take me a little longer to get to certain places. Are there things in the military that are systematic that we don't have control over when we're serving? Absolutely. But there are still things that we do have control over: our attitude, how we show up every day, what work we are putting in to ensure the most success. Because it does not matter how long it takes to hit those goals or hit that vision. If you're putting in the maximum amount of work that you can put in, you're going to hit that vision. And I just wasn't putting in the maximum amount of work. And so I spent a really long time, though, just grieving what I thought would be and being very disgruntled and just being in this low place. But I think you have to grieve that and you have to go through the process and the motions to really get through to the other side where you can be reflective. I truly think that it is part of this process, that there are steps to it where if we don't feel into the emotion and fully embody and embrace what we went through, and maybe a little bit of that's feeling sorry for ourselves, probably, but you can't stay there forever. At some point, you have to be like, okay, I get it. This happened, and I have to figure out how to pick up the pieces and move on. And I kind of want to give a little bit of a backstory with where this idea popped in my head. I'm doing this conscious business accelerator course right now. Aaron Dowdy, I think is his last name, and a few other individuals are holding it. And I used to listen to a lot of Aaron's content on YouTube back in the day. I don't remember when I stopped or why I stopped, but I joined one of their office hour lives the other day, and there was an individual who was a swimmer back in the day, and she was supposed to go to the Olympics, and something happened that she wasn't able to go. And it resonated with me so much because I too used to be a swimmer. I too thought I was going to go to the Olympics, and I too was not able to. And I didn't realize I haven't really swam competitively since I was 18 years old, 17, 18 years old. And I didn't realize how much I was holding on to the grief of the life that I thought I wanted until I heard this lady speak and bring up her story. And just hearing her be coached through that experience of what she went through. And I was like, holy shit, I thought that I had gotten past this, but I didn't. I was still holding on to this idea and this belief that, Rachel, you're a failure because you didn't get to be great. You didn't get to be on the top of the world stage and in the Olympics. And I've had this problem throughout my life where I have this idea in my head of who I think I am, and the actions that I'm taking in my life are not matching up to that person that I think I am. And so, because things are out of alignment, naturally I stay very stagnant in certain areas of my life. And that's something that I'm not necessarily proud of, but it's a fact and it's true. And it's, recognizing these things so that we can move forward. And a lot of the things that do hold me back in my life are related back to childhood, but sometimes we don't even realize that these things are holding us back because in our mind, we're like, no, I've gotten past that. And there was like this light bulb moment for me where I was like, I really, for such a long time in my life, held on to this idea, this embodiment, this identity that I was a really good athlete and that I was going to go to the Olympics. And I think a lot of that identity was in my head because that's what a lot of people told me. They were like, wow, you're really good. And oh, you're going to be in the Olympics someday. And anytime I talked to anyone for years of my life and they said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to be in the Olympics someday. I went to the Olympic trials to meet some Olympians. I had pictures with these Olympians, and like that was me and that was my life. That was what I was going to do. And so when I was not able to do that anymore, and I started to be around people who were much better than me, and I saw that I wasn't as good as I thought I was, I took that really hard and really personally. And I tried to cling on to something for a lot longer than I should have, because I should not have been a college athlete, just wasn't there. But I still walked on and I tried anyway, but I still wasn't putting in all the work. And so there's kind of this theme and this pattern in my life where I have this expectation of myself. I create this image in my head of myself, and I create this whole vision surrounding that. But the back end action just isn't really happening. It's not taking place. Is that a little embarrassing to admit to the entire globe on my podcast? Absolutely. Because I think other people see this vision of who we are and they think like, wow, that person's incredible and they're putting in all this work. And yeah, I'll give credit where credit is due. There are areas where I am putting in a lot of work in my life, and I'm starting to learn more systems and strategies so that I'm not taking it all on and not being burnt out. And I'm in a lot better of a place now than I was 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But if nothing changes, nothing changes. And repeating and perpetuating patterns and not understanding why we're stagnant is where so many people get stuck in life. And it all starts with that reflection and understanding and connecting the dots and saying, wow, I did this in my military experience because this is all I knew from maybe an athletic experience or a childhood experience or a friendship experience. And all I was doing in the military is just perpetuating the same thing, definition of insanity, and expecting a different result. And that's a huge breakthrough for me, by the way, because I just, for years, I think I sat around like, man, I did this, I did everything right. Why didn't it go the way I wanted it to go? Well, because I didn't do everything right. I didn't do everything that I needed to do to truly be successful at the end of the day. And it's not that I didn't have the tools. It's not that I didn't have the people there, the support. I did. I just chose not to do things the right way. But we don't know what we don't know. And so I have to give myself grace for that time period of my life where I truly thought that I was doing the best I could with the information I had, which is true, I was. But I think a lot of us get stuck here. A lot of us are sitting in a place in our life where we're thinking, what is going on? I am doing the best that I can, and I don't understand why my life is not moving forward in the direction that I want it to go. And what that mindset does is it brings us even further down. And then we start to attract more negativity. And then as we get validation, because we're seeking validation, as we get more validation in that negativity, it just pulls us further down and further down and further down. And then all of a sudden we're in this hole where we're like, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. But we're never truly stuck. Sometimes you just need a switch in environment, a change in perspective. Maybe that friend of yours that tells you how it is and you don't want to hear it. But there's always these little clues and tips and pieces of information around us that are there trying to help pull us out of this hole that we've dug ourselves into. We just have to open our eyes and see it. Because I look back now and I can see the little pieces that were trying to pull me out of that rut. But I got so comfortable being uncomfortable, not in a good way, because it feels good when, you show up to work in the morning and you're complaining with your buddies and they're also complaining too. It doesn't feel good when you show up to work and you're complaining and someone just looks at you and they say, cool, I don't want to hear it. And they walk away. We just want validation. So sometimes it is just to switch an environment. The reason I think it was so good for me to get out of the military and get around a different group of people is because getting around other people who are not stuck in that negative mindset and not complaining is what I truly needed. And I still find myself at times trying to complain or maybe compare someone else's life to mine. Oh, they have it worse. I can't believe they're doing this. I can't believe they're doing that. But then it's back to that reflection of, okay, but what are you doing with your life? Let's focus back in on what really matters, which is me changing my own life. And so I hope you took something from this. because this was a huge reflective process for me that I think is a reflective process that everyone should go through, is really taking that magnifying lens and looking at your own heart, looking at your soul, looking at your timeline, looking at where you've been, having gratitude for every experience in your life, the good and the bad, allowing yourself the emotional space to grieve the life that you thought you were going to have, but then also recognizing that if nothing changes, nothing changes. And that can be really, really uncomfortable. That can be an incredibly uncomfortable conversation to have with yourself. But that discomfort can spread to other areas of your life because sometimes you have to find a completely different circle. Sometimes you have to up and move to a completely different place. Sometimes you need that solitude, or sometimes you just have to switch up what you're doing with your day to day life. And so that's, I think, where I'm at right now is just trying my best to move into the discomfort of switching up what I do with my day-to-day life, because I think a lot of us know what we need to do to drastically change our life. It's just uncomfortable. And it's easy to say, yeah, I can't do that. It's not that easy. It is easy physically. The hard part is right here in our head mentally. It's also easy to avoid the people in your life who tell you the things that you don't want to hear. And I do that quite a bit too. But it's necessary. And I think we all deserve to live full, incredible, amazing lives where we are tapping into our full potential. And so don't stay stuck forever. And if you need accountability, reach out, get accountability. If you need someone to tell you how it is, I'm sure you have a friend that will tell you how it is. There's always one. But just distancing yourself from the people who are bringing you down and telling yourself every day that you deserve to live the best version of your life and you deserve everything you want in the world. So go out and get what you want and create a vision if you don't have one, and make sure that you're taking those steps every day that are in alignment with moving towards your vision. That is the key to getting what we want in life. And so we're all on this journey together, especially us veterans. It's not easy reinventing or creating a new version of you after you separate from the military and figuring out who you are, because we're not going back to the person that we were before. I'm still trying to figure out who Rachel is after the military. It's been 3 years, and that's okay. That's the beauty of life, is figuring out, discovering, learning, growing, falling down, getting back up again, knowing that when I got back up again this time, that I'm not hitting the same point that I hit the last time I fell down. I'm a little higher up on the mountain this time, and just embracing the process and loving every step of the journey. So let me know if you got something from this. You can follow the social media pages on Instagram. Most of the handles are _YSDEH. I think there may be one that I haven't changed yet, but appreciate the support on all the platforms. We also have a Patreon for those of you who want to support monetarily. I have a $5 a month membership for anyone who just wants to support. Appreciate any and all support that we can get. And then I also launched apparel a few months back. That's on the website, ysdeh.com. So you're welcome to go on there and grab a hoodie, a beanie. I think there's coffee mugs. They may be sold out. I'm not sure, but please reach out anytime. Let me know if this episode resonated with you. I love hearing from my listeners, especially if an episode really impacted you. I really speak from my soul on these solo episodes, and I get random inspiration. For me, actually, it was last night at like probably 10, 11 o'clock at night that I got this inspiration. So I was so excited to share just some words from my soul with you. So looking forward to hearing from you all, and I will see you guys next week.
Thank you for taking the time to listen in today. With your support, we are able to increase awareness of the mental health issues affecting service members and veterans today, with the goal of creating positive change. If you got value from this episode, please take 30 seconds to subscribe and share this episode within your own network. Until next time, remember, your story matters, your mental health matters, and your story doesn't end here.